Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, everybody loved the Twisted Metal series. What's that? Oh, not everybody loved it, okay. Twisted Metal was a beloved franchise in the industry. The series popularized the genre of vehicular combat, which led to other developers following suit. One such company was Pacific Coast Power and Light. And no, they're not responsible for providing electricity to millions of homes and businesses on the West Coast, as their name might imply. Instead, they've developed games such as Jet Moto 3, Road Rash 64, MX Superfly, and of course, WWE Crush Hour. The game would release for the PS2 and the Nintendo Wii. Oh, the Wii wasn't out yet. The game would release for the PS2 and GameCube in March of 2003 in the US and May of 2003 for the PAL region. An Xbox version was planned for release, but sadly was eventually cut. I should also note that WWE Crush Hour was a budget title, which means it was released for a much lower price than most other games that were released during the time. So is the game any good? That's the question. Well, let's find out.
Welcome to the landscape of television, now that WWE owner Mr. McMahon controls all the networks. Now you can see his WWE superstars in all your favorite TV shows and commercials. And though the critics continue to protest, you can't argue with success. In fact, Mr. McMahon is now revving up for his most anticipated and some say dangerous debut to date. A no-holds-barred battle where the superstars trade in their muscles for muscle cars. Welcome to Crush Hour. Thanks to our sponsor, Mr. McMahon, tonight you will witness WWE superstars battling for survival behind the wheel. Let's take you to the action.
Okay, well, that sure explains why so many WWE wrestlers are jumping into vehicles and blowing each other up. And I put heavy emphasis on the word many. There are 32 vehicles to choose from here, which is quite impressive given that most games in the vehicular combat genre during this time featured maybe about half of that. 9 of these selections will need to be unlocked in the game's season mode, but right off the bat you'll have access to 23 different sets of wheels. You'll see a little bit of everything here with mid-carders like William Regal, Test, Billy and Chuck, and of course we get the promotion's bigger names such as Stone Cold, The Rock, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, and Triple H amongst others. We even see a few divas here as well. And for a game that focuses strictly on vehicular gameplay, I was pleasantly surprised to see fully animated character models for each wrestler, even if some of them do look a bit off. Each vehicle has its own unique visual design and attributes including handling, defense, strength, and speed, offering something for just about every single style of player. In typical professional wrestling fashion, what kind of deadly vehicular shootout would this be without flashy entrances? We even get Titantron videos, and announcing by the late great Howard Finkel.
Entering in the SUV pickup truck hybrid, Booker T.
I like how they threw in the vehicle descriptions just for good measure. It adds a certain silliness that I'm not sure was intended. I noticed a few things here, like the NWO theme is the one used in WrestleMania 18 on the GameCube. Oh, and vehicles will grab health and weapon pickups during entrances if they lie in their path, which probably isn't purposeful as sadly you won't get to actually start the match with these items. Either way, these entrances are short but sweet and a nice little touch. Level designs here range from arenas based on weekly WWE TV shows such as Raw and SmackDown to larger outdoor stages that feature more areas to explore. And even though you'll see some destructible objects here and there that may reveal a specific item pickup, there isn't much in the form of hidden areas as we've seen in other similar games before this. Another unique aspect of these levels is that most of them were designed around match types that are specific to each one, like this arena here, which is by default set up for the cage match game mode. With that being said, some of these arenas can appear to be a little bit on the smaller, more simpler side, but they get the job done, and I do appreciate the similarities to the shows they represent. Vehicle control is pretty straightforward here. The A button is used to accelerate, B is for brake and reverse. There are turbos to give you a boost by tapping X or double tapping the accelerator. R fires your machine gun, or primary weapon as the game calls it, and Z is used for your foreign object. These are items that you'll pick up around each stage and consist of weapons such as mines, a mortar type device called the atomic drop. See what they did there. And the twisty rockets, which Jim Ross just seems thrilled to say.
Just grab the twisty rockets.
That's right, folks. Good old JR covers commentary here, and even channels a little bit of his inner Vince McMahon at times.
Spectacular maneuver there by The Undertaker.
It's not bad, it's just a bit repetitive as well as limited. But to fill some of those gaps in the commentary, we do get in-game taunts by the wrestlers, which are pretty entertaining, though some of them are, like, really loud.
There's no escaping Kane.
Each wrestler features his or her own special move, which can be used after filling this meter here, and this is done by inflicting damage to your opponents. A simple tap of the Y button unleashes this powerful attack, which as far as I can tell is a one-shot kill, or at least it's been every time that I've used it. Another helpful feature is the power slide maneuver, which can be used by holding L, and it comes in handy when you're trying to do battle but don't want to be limited to a head-to-head face-off where you might get a kill, but you'll most certainly lose most of your health in the process. And speaking of health, these pickups are scattered throughout each arena, so you'll almost always be able to pick some up when you're running low. Well, that's if you can get to it in time. Other pickups include items such as turbos, armor, and even invulnerability, which presents itself in the form of a shiny WWE logo. But of course. The difficulty here, in my opinion, varies quite a bit from one game mode to another. Some matches I could breeze through easily, while others took quite a bit of patience and zen harnessing to complete. I did find some cheap ways to get kills, like targeting opponents who are close to death, as they'll usually avoid fighting back in order to go retrieve health, or ramming into the sides of enemies and pinning them up against walls, which leaves them unable to attack or move. I found myself doing this move more and more as the season mode progressed and the difficulty increased. I also found my opponents to be quite repetitive, almost as if they were set up by the developers in groups instead of random selections. I can't tell you how many times I faced off against Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, and Booker T. Even with the huge roster, I managed to get these same 3 enemies quite frequently. That brings me to my next issue. You'll only ever have 4 vehicles in a match at a time. I mean, I guess it's not really a big deal, but as a Twisted Metal fan, some of my fondest memories are driving through a level and coming across like 7 or 8 cars doing battle with each other. Also, because of this, most matches feature regenerating enemies. So you might eliminate Big Show only to have him turn right around and respawn seconds later. But the workaround for this shortcoming is the points system, where most matches require the player to get a certain amount of kills to win, or the most kills within a specific time limit. Visually, the game is pretty standard for the era. Character models look quite detailed, as I mentioned, and the vehicles all look good. Well, for the most part. Some textures are a bit bare and the colors are a tad washed out, but that's most likely by design. Maybe they were going for that Twisted Metal black look. I guess the thing that sets Crush Hour apart from other games in the genre is the sheer amount of different gameplay types. To be honest, it's actually a little overwhelming at first. Now, most of these are locked when you first boot up the game, but as you progress through the season mode, they'll become available for you to play as you please. As a newcomer, it's important to pay close attention to the game mode descriptions in the instruction manual, but if you're like me and don't have that to your disposal, well, you might be a little lost. For example, the hardcore mode calls for the player to retrieve the championship title and hold onto it for a specific amount of time in order to win. If another character grabs a hold of it first, that enemy will need to be defeated in order to get it from them. This also turns you into the target once you grab a hold of it, as the other competitors will now exclusively attack you in order to get the belt. I went into this one blind and really had no idea what I was doing, but once I figured out the objective, I found that this one was actually pretty easy. As long as I kept picking up turbos, I could simply race around the arena in a circle, avoiding the enemy AI while the timer ran out. Some match types turn the game into a collectathon, where the player must drive around and retrieve 10 of these shiny stars which randomly generate around the map. Okay, well, not completely random. There seems to be only a set number of places they'll spawn in, but regardless, it's rather tricky trying to get these stars before your opponents do. You kind of have to be in the right place at the right time. On top of all that, anytime you die, you'll lose a star, so you'll also want to make sure you're watching your back and not falling off of rooftops. And that reminds me, some stages have hazards in them, which can kill you, and if they do, you'll lose a point. Whether it be a kill or a star you've collected, it all depends on the type of game mode you've selected. You can, however, disable this in the options menu. We also see match types such as the Battle Royal, where after an enemy is defeated, another will replace him or her. The last vehicle standing will be declared the winner. Oh yeah, and don't get hit by that train. There's the cage match, which, as you might guess, starts in a cage, but it ends with a mad dash to retrieve a contract, which, after collected, will need to be taken to a specific destination on the map to earn a point. This is another mode where enemies will target the vehicle currently holding the contract, resulting in it being dropped if defeated while holding it. We even see a tag match, which allows for 2 vehicles to be selected, with the player having the ability to switch back and forth between them during gameplay. And really, the list goes on for match types. There's truly quite the selection here. The season mode is where you'll go to unlock these match types, along with the hidden vehicles. This, however, is a long and even sometimes painful process, as this mode must be completed numerous times in order to unlock everything. Want to raise some hell with Bradshaw? Complete the season with Brock Lesnar first. Lita? Do it with Matt Hardy. Care to play as Hulk Hogan? Well, you'll need to finish the mode as The Rock, and so on. And with the varying levels of difficulty that I mentioned, paired with some eventual repetitiveness, this might not be something you'll want to tackle. I did come across some cheat codes that claimed to unlock everything, but the only one I was able to get working was the one to play as Kevin Nash. But if you do hang in there and make it to the end in one piece, you'll get the opportunity to defeat and unlock Mr. McMahon himself. With plenty of gameplay types offered up here and a few cutscenes scattered throughout, I think it's worth giving it a playthrough, but I don't think I'd personally have the patience to do it multiple times. This is another game I didn't play when it was initially released, and I honestly can't remember why, as I'm a huge fan of the genre, and obviously a wrestling fan. Maybe it was just timing. I mean, by this point in gaming, the vehicular combat titles were a dying breed, with open-world GTA-style games flooding the market. By the time I did get to play it, it had been out for about 10 years, and of course by then it's not gonna hold up as it did day one. Sure, it didn't fare too well by critics upon release, but regardless of that, if you're a fan of the WWE brand, or these twisted metal influenced games, I think there's definitely at least a little bit of fun to be had here. So what do you guys think? Crush Hour, yay or nay? I've had this one requested for a while by quite a few people, which usually means you guys either love it or hate it with a passion. If you like the channel and the content I'm doing here, please subscribe. It honestly does help keep me motivated to create. And if you're already for life, I appreciate the support. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching.